Dr. Sage here, back to conclude our introduction to the human body. Today's topic, anatomical terminology. By the end of this video, you should be able to demonstrate the anatomical position, describe the human body using directional and regional terms, identify the three planes most commonly used in the study of anatomy, distinguish between the posterior or dorsal and anterior or ventral body cavities, identifying their subdivisions and representative organs found in each, and describe the serous membrane and explain its function. So, just as maps are normally oriented with north at the top, the standard body map or anatomical position is that of a body standing straight upright, with the feet at shoulder width and parallel, toes forward, the upper limbs are held out to each side, and the palms of the hands face forward. The anatomical position is demonstrated in this figure. A body that is lying down is described as either prone or supine. Prone describes a face-down orientation, while supine describes a face-up orientation. The human body's numerous regions have specific terms to help increase precision, things you will be learning about during this course. For example, you might informally call the upper arm is called the arm or brachium. In contrast, the lower portion of the arm is called the forearm or antebrachium. We also need to be able to describe the body using directional terms. So to begin, anterior or ventral describes the front or direction towards the front of the body. For example, the toes are anterior to the foot. Posterior or dorsal describes the back or direction towards the back of the body. Superior or cranial describes a position above or higher than another part on the body proper. For example, the cranium or skull is superior to the neck. Inferior or caudal describes a position below or lower than another part of the body proper. For example, the neck is inferior to the cranium. Lateral describes the side or direction towards the side of the body. For example, my deltoid muscle is lateral to my pectoral muscle. Medial describes the middle or direction towards the middle of the body. For example, my pectoral muscles are medial compared to my deltoid muscles. Proximal describes a position on a limb that is nearer to the point of attachment or the trunk of the body. For example, my brachium is proximal to my antebrachium. Distal describes a position in a limb that is farther from the point of attachment or the trunk of the body. For example, my antebrachium is distal compared to my brachium. Superficial describes a position closer to the surface of the body. For example, your skin is superficial to your bones. Deep describes a position farther from the surface of the body. For example, the brain is deep compared to your skull. We also need to understand the three planes most commonly used in the study of anatomy. So first, a plane is an imaginary two-dimensional surface that passes through the body. The sagittal plane is a plane that divides the body or organ vertically into right and left sides. If this vertical plane runs directly down the middle of the body, it is called the mid-sagittal or median plane. If it divides the body into unequal right and left sides, it is called the parasagittal plane, or less commonly, a longitudinal section. The frontal plane is a plane that divides a body or organ into an anterior or front portion, or posterior or rear portion. The frontal plane is often referred to as a coronal plane. A transverse plane is a plane that divides the body or organ horizontally into upper and lower portions. Transverse planes produce images referred to as cross sections. An oblique plane in anatomy is a diagonal plane that cuts through the body at an angle, not parallel or perpendicular to the other three standard anatomical planes. We also need to understand the body cavities. The dorsal or posterior cavity and the ventral or anterior cavity are the largest body compartments. The ventral cavity includes the thoracic and abdominal pelvic cavities and their subdivisions, while the dorsal cavity includes the cranial and spinal cavities. The posterior, dorsal, and anterior ventral cavities are each subdivided into smaller cavities. In the posterior dorsal cavity, the cranial cavity houses the brain, and the spinal cavity or vertebral cavity encloses the spinal cord. The anterior ventral cavity has two main subdivisions, the thoracic cavity and the abdominal pelvic cavity. The thoracic cavity is a more superior subdivision of the anterior cavity, and it is enclosed by the rib cage. The thoracic cavity contains the lungs and the heart, which is located in the mediastinum. The diaphragm forms the floor of the thoracic cavity and separates it from the more inferior abdominal pelvic cavity. The abdominal pelvic cavity is the largest cavity in the body. Although no membranes physically divide the abdominal pelvic cavity, it can be useful to distinguish between the abdominal cavity, the division that houses the digestive organs, and the pelvic cavity, the division that houses the organs of reproduction. To promote clear communication, for instance about the location of a patient's abdominal pain or a suspicious mass, healthcare providers typically divide up the cavity into either 9 regions or 4 quadrants. The more detailed regional approach subdivides the cavity with one horizontal line immediately inferior to the ribs and one immediately superior to the pelvis, and 2 vertical lines drawn as if dropped from each clavicle or collarbone, like this. There are 9 resulting regions. These regions are the epigastric region, umbilical region, hypogastric region, right hypochondriac region, left hypochondriac region, right lumbar region, left lumbar region, right iliac region, left iliac region. The simpler quadrants approach, which is more commonly used in medicine, subdivides the cavity with one horizontal and one vertical line that intersected the patient's umbilicus or navel. This results in the right upper quadrant, the left upper quadrant, the right lower quadrant, and the left lower quadrant. You also need to be able to describe serous membrane and explain its function. A serous membrane, also referred to as serosa, is one of the thin membranes that cover the walls and organs of the thoracic and abdominal pelvic cavities. The parietal layers of the membranes line the walls of the body cavity. Parietal refers to a cavity wall, and the visceral layer of the membrane covers the organs or the viscera. Between the parietal and visceral layers is a very thin, fluid-filled serous space or cavity. So to help you understand the serous membrane, let's use an analogy as if you were to take your fist and push it into a partially inflated balloon. If you were to do that, you would have an area of the balloon that's touching your fist, an area of the balloon that's away from your fist and towards the exterior, and then you have an interior space of the balloon, which in this case is filled with air. Similarly, in the serous membrane, we have parietal layers of the membrane, which are going to face the walls of the body cavity. Parietal refers to a cavity wall. The visceral layer of the membrane, which covers the organs or the viscera. And then between the parietal and visceral, there is a very thin, fluid-filled serous space, so like in here, okay, which is analogous to this air-filled space in this balloon. There are 3 serous cavities and their associated membranes. The pleura is a serous membrane that encloses the pleural cavity, and the pleural cavity surrounds the lungs. The pericardium is a serous membrane that encloses the pericardial cavity, and the pericardial cavity surrounds the heart. And the peritoneum is a serous membrane that encloses the peritoneal cavity. The peritoneal cavity surrounds several organs of the abdominal pelvic cavity. So this concludes the series of videos on the introduction to human biology, and in particular, today we discussed anatomical terminology. Until next time, this has been Dr. Sage.